Universities in the northwest say they have lost millions of pounds and hundreds of students because of the introduction of tuition fees. Up to 80 staff will be made redundant at the University of Bolton because of empty places, and Salford University's revenue is down £4 million this year.
A 3-year course at Bolton last year would have cost around £10,000. This year it's risen to £21,000, and that's one of the cheaper universities. One Vice-Chancellor has told us that universities were now facing up to the biggest challenge in half a century. Our investigative reporter, Abby Jones, has this exclusive report.
Do you think that would be correct?
A lecture in being an entrepreneur, especially apt in today's climate. But business management at the University of Bolton has been hit this year. Student numbers overall are down by 150, a loss of £1 million a year. It's having to make 70 to 80 admin staff redundant.
One of the most worrying things this year for universities, particularly universities like mine, is that mature students appear to have been, in the main, put off more than 18-year-olds. We've done quite well with 18-year-olds this year. In terms of the mature student market, that's dropped off probably by as much as 50%.
Natalie Clayton, who's studying sports rehabilitation, is one of those 18-year-old recruits helping Bolton survive. But she says going to university was a really tough decision.
I have to continue to do the good degree, but then as soon as the money went up, it was kind of a bit scary and shocking, really, and I think it's put a lot of people off as well.
This is the biggest challenge we've had in British higher education for 50 years.
Professor Martin Hall is Vice-Chancellor at the University of Salford. It has 440 empty places, which means £4 million less this year.
Finding £4 million in the middle of a year is a difficult thing to do, so it's a big challenge. We now know, for example, across Britain as a whole, that there are up to about 60,000 students short across the sector as a whole. So it's not just us with our 440 places. There are about 60,000 students simply gone missing.
Manchester Metropolitan University and the University of Manchester are both down around 500 students each. Manchester has a whole hall of residents empty. The University of Central Lancashire and Preston says it's below target, but has declined to say by how many. So has Liverpool University, which says some courses have struggled.
But tuition fees aren't the only challenge facing our universities. Each year the government gives them a quota of students they can recruit that goes up and down depending on things like the kinds of students they take. This year Manchester Metropolitan Universities went down by 900, the biggest drop nationally. So it could recruit less to start with, and then 500 fewer students accepted places than expected, making a total drop of students of 1,400 on last year. And there's been an extra problem for universities which rely heavily on taking students with AAB grades or higher. The University of Manchester thought it could attract nearly 4,000, but this year not as many students got those high grades.
Is this just a one-year blip, or is this going to be a long-term trend? If we are hundreds of places down at institutions, that's going to mean millions of pounds less going into teaching. That isn't going to be a better education.
Universities insist they're still the best form of career investment. Most of those we talk to say they have contingency plans to cope. But if student numbers fall again next year, there are fears some courses will have to merge or close altogether. Abby Jones, BBC North West Tonight.
So big falls in student numbers, fears courses may have to be scrapped, and a funding crisis resulting in redundancies at one of our universities. Well, earlier I asked the Minister for Universities and Science, David Willits, how he felt about the situation here in the North West.
Look, what we have done with our reforms is we have increased the total amount of cash going to our universities for teaching, and without students having to pay anything up front. But instead the cash will go in accordance with the choices of students about which university to go to. Now I do realise that this is the first year of the new system, and there are some universities that have found the first year harder than others. But the basic principle of our reforms is we can keep the number of students broadly flat, we can have more money going to universities, and you only pay back as a graduate, not as a student. That is a good deal for our young people and a good deal for our universities.
But I'm slightly confused when you say more money is going to our universities, because our experience is that more money isn't going to our universities because the student numbers are down and the government has cut funding.
I recognise that there are some that are down. There are others that are actually up, and it's just possible that some of the universities that have gained students this year are perhaps not quite as vociferous as the ones that, for whatever reason, have lost students. So you have to allow for the fact that under this system there is a bit more freedom and flexibility.
Do you think that it's possible that the university sector has got too big and actually market forces will force some to go out of business altogether?
There will be more and more choices that students can make between individual universities. They'll be looking at the information available. They're looking at the quality of the teaching experience, what the guarantees are on hours of contact with academics, things like that. So there will be some universities.
If some did go out of business.
Well, we have never offered a guarantee. No government has offered a guarantee to every university that it will automatically carry on. But look, my belief is the underlying trend in this country is pretty clear. More people want to go to university. Employers look for more graduates. We're putting more cash in total into our universities. These are great institutions with a strong future, but they are in a more competitive environment, and that means that some will lose students and others will gain students. Okay. And that will arise not as a result of a decision in government in Whitehall, that will arise because of the choices made by individual students about where they wish to apply for.
Okay, Ms. Willits, thank you very much for joining us.